Yo, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another tutorial in this season of hidden features inside Final Cut Pro. So in the last episode, I kind of talked about, I teased you on what you can do to improve drone shots that are, or any kind of shot that's shot in slow motion or and then sped up in post. So let's take a drone shot, for example, that is, by nature, they look pretty slow moving. Even if you're moving at a fast pace, they look slow moving because they're generally quite far away from the actual subject. So what happens when you speed it up is the fact that, well, quite often they're sped up, but when you speed it up, you miss out on this kind of blurriness effect, especially with some shots I'm going to show you here today. Like this shot, for example, is a circulating shot, an orbiting shot, and then we have a helix shot, and then we have a hyperlapse moving into the subject. Now we're going to do essentially the same process for all these different shots, but I'm going to show you why these four shots in particular are really good to have, or this effect is really good to use with this. So let's get straight into this with this first shot here. Like I said, an orbiting shot. So the goal here is to add some blur, make this look more realistic. This isn't something that the user or the viewer watches to begin with without any of this blur, without this effect. They don't watch it and think to themselves, doesn't look right. It's all subconscious that something goes on in their mind that says this isn't entirely natural, this isn't exactly how this would be. Think about what left to right. You can't focus on anything as you're moving because everything's a blur depending on the speed that you're moving. And the same thing is what we're trying to emulate in video. So when most movies are shot at 24 frames per second with a double frame rate of about 50 or so, we get that nice motion blur as we move from side to side. But when we shoot at a higher frame rate, we don't get that kind of blur. So let's say with this shot here, I want to increase the blur as we speed up this shot. Saturate that shot so the viewer really feels like they can feel that motion, they can feel that in themselves as the drone's spinning around the subject. So what we're going to do is select our shot, go to the effects browser on the right hand side, and then search for visual echo. I'm going to drag that onto my clip. First thing we need to do is turn the amount down to 0, and then what we're going to do is keyframe this to increase. So you might think, well, maybe I'll tell you what I'm trying to do here. When we start to speed up here, I want to show that there's more blur. However, if we start this, if we start keyframing right from the beginning of this speed ramp, I found through my experience that the effect doesn't seem to work that well. It looks fake. It looks like it's speeding up slower than the blur is increasing, and it looks strange. So what I do is I start from the break point. So I'm going to go to that middle point, set a marker point there, go to where I'm finishing this off, set another marker point by pressing M, and then go back to my first one, hit a keyframe on the amount, go to the second marker point, but in particular 35 seems to be the best. You don't want to go overboard with that. Then I want to dip it back down again and where I want it to end, and then drop it all the way back down. So what we're doing here is building up this motion blur, having it do the duration of the sped up clip, and then dropping it off toward the end. So then this is what you're left with. Now, of course, play around with that amount, play around with the duration of this until you have it to exactly what you want. So then I'm going to go through exactly the same here. I'll just fast forward it. So I'm going to put my marker points down first where I want it to start and end. Again, start and end. Go back to my beginning, keyframe. There we go. And then we've essentially just duplicated that. So now we've got a drone shot that's orbiting, speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down, and making the viewer feel like they're in that circulation. So then let's move on to our next shot here. Again, I'm going to bring up the retiming. Shot looks pretty plain to begin with. I'll play it through. This type of shot, this orbit shot, if you haven't watched one of the prior tutorials on stabilizing a shot like this, you'll find it's very jerky. So I've stabilized this shot to begin with, and now it's time for me to add the effect. So I'm going to bring that down to begin with, set my marker points out, down. Now adding these marker points here when you've got this speed ramp, because the speed ramp's a pretty good tell of where I want to start and stop my effect, I don't necessarily need to add these marker points, but I always do just because I feel they're useful to use. And when I'm using an effect like this that is quite render intensive, you can see here that during the time that I've been talking, we've already gotten this much done. I tend to leave these kind of effects till the end of my edit. When I do that, I would be adding a to-do marker, which is Command-Shift-T with my workspaces. You can download those in the description. So you can add it to two, press done, and then you can go into your index over here and go to your tags, and you can search through. So let's say my to-do items, when I come back to the end of my edit and I want to add intensive tasks, I can move into these kind of tags over here and I can check them off as I go through them. Just a little sneak trick, something in behind Final Cut Pro. So let's play this through. So now I've got another speed ramp in these next two shots. So I'm going to go through these, I'm going to fast forward them, just so you get a quick idea and just a bit of repetition. Repetition's always good. And there you have it, the visual echoes are done. So I'll play these clips through before and after. I kind of overlay them left and right. So on the left side will be the original version, on the right hand side will be the blurred version, and you guys can tell the difference and see it for yourself. Maybe it's not something that you're like, wow, that's absolutely crazy, but it's something that people will notice as part of the edit, being that they become more immersed in the actual footage themselves. I mean, the whole goal of creating this footage is to make someone feel like they're immersed, to make them feel that footage, to make them feel like something's spinning. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found this one useful. Again, it's not an absolute game changer, but it's something to help improve feeling in the user's experience, which is what creating video is all about. So in the next video, what we're going to do is turn footage. You know what? I'll show you an example, kind of a little teaser, and then in the next video, I'll show you how to do this.